I'd like to share some thoughts with you today from the book of Philippians chapter 2, verse 14 through 16. Verse 14 reads, "Do all things without complaining and disputing." When we are faced with adverse, difficult situations, how do we react? How do we respond? Sometimes people do the very thing that we're instructed not to do here in verse 14. Many dispute and complain and, and spread all kinds of stories and things, even, false things that conspiracy theories, just all sorts of things that discourages others, that promotes hurt feelings, that adds to the pain that others are experiencing. Jesus wants us to do that which encourages others and strengthens others. He wants us to be a positive people. And that's what we find here in verse 14. 1 Thessalonians 5 and 11 says, "Therefore comfort one another and edify one another, just as you also are doing." We are to comfort one another, encourage one another, strengthen one another, uplift one another. The word edify means to build up. Do that which builds up those around you. So many today are reacting and responding in such a way that tears down. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 verse 1 tells us that love edifies. Love builds up. We're to be a people who has the love of God in their hearts. Those who have the love of God are not going to do things that hurt others and tear down others. We're going to do everything we can to build up. And I've seen so many positive messages from other pastors and other friends that I have that are posting on Facebook positive things, encouraging things. And I'm encouraged by that. It's wonderful to see how Christians are responding at a time like we're going through right now. The Apostle Paul goes on to say in verse 15 that he says that you may be blameless and harmless. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to bring pain to somebody else. And we're to be blameless. We're going to have to give an account one of these days when we stand before God at the judgment. He says we're to be children of God. That's how children of God, or actually we are children of God if we're saved. And that's how we're to respond, or how we're to be rather. We're to be blameless and harmless, without fault, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation. We're living in a dark world. It didn't turn dark overnight. It didn't just turn dark because coronavirus came on the scene. It's been dark ever since Adam and Eve fell in the garden many, many, many years ago. But Jesus teaches us that we are children of light, that we are to shine. We find in verse 15 as we continue on reading there that he says we're to shine as lights in the world. Jesus says that we're not to hide our light, but we're to let it shine forth. Now, we don't have a light of our own, but we shine forth the light of Jesus Christ that is within us. I think of Jesus used parables, so I think of a type of a parable that we can see in the sky today, and that is the moon and the sun. The moon has no light of its own. It reflects the light of the sun, S-U-N, and we're to reflect the light of the Son, S-O-N, the Son of God. And so let us shine forth in this world today to show others the way, to show others, to give others hope, to light others a way, to give light to others so that they can find their way to salvation in Jesus Christ. Verse 16 says, holding forth the word of life. Holding forth, like holding a torch out, as I said, and as the scripture says, to show others the way to salvation. The Apostle Paul concludes verse 16 by saying, so that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain or labored in vain. He had shined the light of the word of life to the church at Philippi. And he expected them to, as the saying is, pass the torch, to hold it forth, to shine it forth, that generations that would come after them would pick the torch up and continue on shining the light of Christ to others in their lives and around them in their lives. And so Paul didn't want to go to judgment and find that and to feel like that he had failed. Well, it wouldn't have been him that failed. He did his part. And he's calling on the Philippian church to do their part. And others would need to do their part, that they would be leading to salvation. Now, finally, I ask this question. Are we doing our part? Are we doing our part to build up others around us, to encourage others, and to shine the light of Jesus in our lives so that others can find their way to hope and salvation in Jesus Christ? God bless you.